With Excel 2016, Microsoft has introduced a few new chart types. We'll cover two of these charts in this lesson, the Waterfall and Sunburst charts. Before we address either of them, though, I'll quickly cover the funnel chart and then dive into the pie chart. The funnel chart is an odd type of bar chart, in my opinion anyhow. It takes a single data series and plots it out as a centered bar graph. It's specifically designed for showing decreasing datasets, so for this example, I'm plotting what I've termed outstanding debt. This one-dimensional chart only takes a single series at a time and simply creates centered lines representing the relative size of each line. As you can see, if I change my first entry to an obscenely large number, all of the other bars shrink. This chart can easily be created by highlighting a data section, such as the one here, and inserting the funnel chart on the Insert tab under Waterfall or Stock Chart options. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot to the funnel chart. Many people are familiar with pie charts due to their simple display of information. Much like a stacked 100% column chart shows the relative share of different series to a total across a variety of factors, a pie chart shows the relative share of different series to a total for a fixed point in time. For this example, I have two pie charts shown next to our 100% stacked column chart from earlier in this chapter. Each pie chart is simply a representation of a single column from the column chart as it represents a whole and separates it into individual pieces. The pie chart also comes in a donut variety, where the pie has a hole in the center, and a 3D variety. The 3D variety only provides a different visual, whereas the donut gives a little bit additional flexibility. With the donut chart, you can add additional series to add more rings to the donut. For example, I can change year 3 to a donut, select the data, and add a series for year 5. The new donut chart adds the new series around the previous chart. The pie of pie and bar of pie charts are a little more complex and tricky to use. Each one takes a piece of the pie and breaks it out into a smaller pie or column chart. Getting the broken out piece to reflect what you're interested in can be tricky. This will be the first chart that we get messy with our Format Data Series section. I've taken the revenue data from our previous lessons, and I've split the unit zeta into departments A, B, and C. The order of the values is very important for the approach that I'm about to show you. The part of the data that I want to dive into has to be at the very end, so to the right. So I have my alpha, my beta, and then my 3 zeta departments. The first thing I need to do is I'm going to select this bar chart which has all the data in it, and as a result has 5 pie slices. And I'm going to go to my design, and I'm going to change the chart type to a pie of pie chart. When I do this, the automatic guess is to split departments B and C out, and then we have a 4-piece of pie chart and a 2-piece of pie chart representing one of the pieces. Now I want to customize this to be specific to my needs, so I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose the Format Data Series. Within the Format Data Series, I'm going to go to my Series options, and I'm going to look down here and I want the values in my second plot to be 3. Once I change this to 3, you can see my chart updates immediately, where my unit zeta shows up in green for the total, with its individual pieces being broken out into its own pie chart. The pie of pie has different values that you can use to break out the pie. The position gives you the most detailed control. However, you can use the value to specify values less than a point to combine together, the percentage value, and you've got a custom where you can elect the data points. However, this can be tricky and difficult, so I tend to use the position most frequently, where then you simply specify the number of points starting from the right that you want to use. The pie charts are fairly easy to use, so let's move on to the Sunburst chart. The Sunburst chart takes a single series and then breaks it down based upon a series of labels and groupings for relativity comparison. I've taken another small set of revenue broken into alpha, beta, and zeta, and assigned internal department revenues across all 3. I'm going to go to Insert, and under the Hierarchy Charts, I'm going to select a Sunburst. I'm going to right-click, choose Select Data. I'm going to add a data series that contains only the revenue values. The initial result looks like a donut chart. Then I'm going to edit the horizontal category labels, and I'm going to include both columns of the labels that I want to use, the unit alpha and the departments. Once I do this, I get our Sunburst chart. Changing the chart style, you can see the labels and what they mean. Unit alpha is grouped with each of the underlying components broken out, same for unit beta and same for unit zeta. You can have more breakdowns and see how they split out. For an example, below this one, I have one with 3 different rings. But now let's move on to the tree map chart, which is another type of hierarchy chart. The tree map chart outlines data similarly to the starburst chart, but the intent is to show hierarchies in their relative size. Here's the sunburst chart from before, modified a little bit further to have 3 rings. I can easily convert this to a tree map chart as they follow the same parameters to get what appears to be a very similar type of hierarchy. Each square is proportional to the overall value, while the label on each one corresponds to the lowest level of detail. As with the sunburst chart, the data is managed through a multi-dimensional selection of the horizontal categorical entries, with a single dimension series that represents the size of each square. In effect, this chart presents a higher level, more summarized form of the sunburst chart. So let's go ahead and move on to our waterfall chart. The waterfall chart isn't one of my more frequently used charts, but it is favored when looking at moving data points. For this type of chart, you want your data to represent a series of changes, so you could have positive and negative values aligned. For this example, I've simply plotted an example series of changes to a fictional bank account. The bank account saw increases on 5/1, 5/17, and 5/29 as paychecks arrived, and outflows on the remaining dates for various bills. So how can we visualize this with a waterfall chart? The only necessary entry for the chart is the series of values itself. So I can select C3 through C10, go to Insert, and under the Waterfall or Stock Chart options, I can choose my waterfall graph. The resulting chart shows each individual movement and how it relates to the total from top to bottom. So on 5/1, there's a blue increase of 500 with decreases of 75, 200, and 150 on dates 2, 3, and 4, followed by the next paycheck, followed by decreases, and followed by the final paycheck. The result at the top or bottom of each graph, depending on the color, tells you what the total cumulative impact is through that point on the chart. These are fairly popular charts among stock traders and financial managers, so you may see them or have them requested on a fairly frequent basis. With that, we've covered the necessities for creating pie, sunburst, tree map, funnel, and waterfall charts. Up to this point, we've covered some of the most commonly used chart types in Excel at a fairly high level. In our next lessons, I'm going to be covering some more specific chart types, stock charts, box and whisker plots, and histograms, before we move into more general manipulation and usage of chart objects.